Cash flow is tight, right? This one just came up yesterday. Cash flow is tight temporarily. Oh, thanks, Nisha. What's the balance between short-term solutions you know are going to be more money in the long run and less expensive solutions that don't completely put out fires today? All right, I got that. And let me share this sentiment with you to acknowledge the question and really where you're coming from. A great quality question has a solution right inside of it. And I love this. I absolutely love this question. It is about balance, and it is about realizing that you have choices. It's not, I can only do this or only do this. You can deploy a portfolio of cash flow management techniques depending on your situation, and you can create whatever kind of balance you're looking for. If you want to be balanced toward putting out a fire now, knowing that a big profitability event is going to happen soon, and make it even in the long run and still profitable after the additional expenses, I get that. That you can move that balance shift over to the more expensive and more complete and more immediate. If you're looking at a cash flow crunch, hopefully you're doing your cash flow forecasting on a rolling basis 3 months into the future at a minimum. And if you're looking 3 months from now and go, gosh, 3 months from now we're going to be at a little cash crunch, then you have more options available to you that cost less. So by way of example, a couple of techniques which vary in complexity. So you have things like vendors who charge late fees versus vendors who don't. You have things like vendors who charge late fees only if your balance due gets above a certain amount. So you can pay enough on all of the vendors like that, such that this cash management strategy or technique doesn't cost your company more money. You can make sure that your vendors are getting paid for the time being a minimum of what they need to get paid. Now, of course, you'll need to protect the integrity of your supply chain, and it may necessitate a personal call to especially your key vendors and say, we're going through a cash flow crunch right now, but it's expected to last only 3 weeks. Our business is cyclical, and this happened last year. Whatever you can call upon to reduce their perception of risk. And of course, risk is a whole different question altogether. But in terms of managing cash flow, don't make it more expensive than it needs to be in the short term, and also don't make the relationship with your vendors or your suppliers more expensive than they need to be in the long run. You can really, with great relationships with your vendors, you can have financial benefits in addition to emotional ones and logistical ones. So keep that communication flowing with your vendors. There are also, of course, short-term and longer-term funding solutions that are more formal in nature, all the way from expensive funding like accounts receivable factoring to typically less expensive funding like a traditional bank loan. Now, since it's less expensive, it requires more of your time and less of a risk profile for your organization. But there are a number of different loan products that could be available to your business. Don't forget the balance. I'll talk about risk just a little bit, but it is a really good cash flow management technique to make sure that you can maybe renegotiate some terms with some key vendors or some key suppliers. And if you can help to balance out risk by, let's say, making a promise in the future, or maybe letting them pull from your bank account automatically on a weekly basis, for example, rather than you writing a check monthly, that's massive risk reduction for them, but cash flow management for you. So even techniques like that, which don't cost your company anything, can really help to manage your cash flow. And I'm always hesitant to jump to the solutions that will definitely put out the fire, but be very pricey. And there is one reason why. Because they're pricey, and because you're dealing with a cash flow crunch, you want that cash flow crunch to be contained, but the high cost of those firefighting solutions is going to spill over and actually expand your cash flow crunch. I've actually seen situations in which it was a constant firefighting, high cost, very expensive cash flow management solution. And that cash crunch became permanent. And something like that can affect an organization's solvency. So be aware that there's a spectrum of solutions available for cash flow management. You can play with risk, you can play with products, you can address relationships, communication, technology, use that to your advantage as well. And really put together a portfolio, design the portfolio. One of my coaches, Whitney Bishop, always says, lead by design, right? And some other courses I've taken, they say, do something by design, not by default. So if you design your cash flow management strategy and then design the techniques to support that strategy, you can come out of this on the other side, whole, complete, solvent, and you can keep that cash flow crunch to a minimum of time. As always, if you'd like to discuss this more with me one-on-one, definitely reach out. In fact, I'm using a new calendar scheduling tool, which I love. It's called Acuity Scheduler. I'm going to type it in, and then and then, it has an S on it. And tier1 services.as, that's for acuityscheduler.me. If you would like to discuss anything, any topic that we're talking about today with me one-on-one, by all means. You can either book a strategy session if you have something in mind and you'd like to discuss becoming a client, or you can just you can book a get to know you networking call. If you just want to get to know each other better, shoot the bull, talk business, and we can usually see what opportunities we can open up for each other. So I'm always pleased to talk with people one-on-one. Love that.